Hey all, welcome back to Pardee's Shop Shenanigans. It's been a minute, hasn't it? I'm Bob, and well, this is my shop, and this is one of the newest shenanigans. It's a 1989 Jeep MJ pickup. It happens to be a two-wheel drive. It's got the 2.5 liter four-cylinder in it, and I don't know a whole bunch about it. Now, we've done a little bit of work already in a previous video. I had no keys when I bought it, so I had to put in a new ignition cylinder. Remember, that's different from the ignition switch. Once I got that put in, I discovered, well, it's not turning over the engine. I don't know if I've got a neutral safety switch that's bad or something else going on in the wiring. This pickup has spent some of its time behind an RV early in its life. There had been a shut-off switch put in under the dash so the key could be left on the steering column so that the column lock would not engage and they could tow it, flat tow it. So got lots to do. Before I get into chasing any electronic issues, let's just take a quick peek. So this little pickup, it's an 89 Sport. We can see someone's changed out a door and who knows what it's had happened to it in its past. This door, well, it got opened and hyperextended and boogered up the joint, or I'm sorry, not the joint, but the hinge. And you can't really see too much in here right now with this lighting, but it's been hyperextended. I'm going to have to pull the door and fix that. There's been a really high-tech striker plate repair done here. Oof. And, you know, I'm not doing anything cleaning it up yet. I want to find out what I'm working with first, just to see whether or not it's going to be something I save, something that turns into a hot rod, or I just flip it. I was super impressed with the fact that I've got a really nice tailgate, two really nice clean tail lights. The bed is in remarkable shape, no rust. Got one little ding up front there, a couple, you know, minor little blemishes, but for something that's 32, 33 years old, I think it's pretty nice to see. Now, if I can make this truck run and go pop, pop, just enough to know that I've got good compression, it'll go. Then on a different episode, we'll take some 60-second to this, pressure wash it, and let's see what kind of life we can breathe back into it. In the meantime, now that I've put in a new key cylinder or ignition cylinder, and I know it doesn't turn anything over just yet. I don't know if it's a neutral safety switch. This is a 5-speed. It's got that BA10 5-speed, not a real heavy-duty engine, but it is just a two-wheel drive pickup. Interior is not in horrible shape. One little rip here in the seat, but otherwise it's not tore up from the floor up. It does have vinyl flooring in it. So I don't know. This could be a fun little project. It could be just a runabout, or maybe we get crazy and I don't know, maybe get crazy and do an LS swap if I can find a money tree in full bloom. I'll be right back. Let me get this hood open and get the camera set up. Okay, so let's talk about a few troubleshooting tips here. Now, when I get a fine treasure like this that I don't know anything about, before I, you know, if I haven't heard it run myself or driven it when I bought it, or seen it in full operation, I don't want to just throw gas in it and start it and see what happens. If it's been something that's sitting, been in the weather, looks like it's had extra wires and extra things done to it, I'd like to give things a once over first. One of the first things I do is I'll drop the fluids. I've already dropped the engine oil, pulled the filter, put in fresh engine oil, because when I do go cranking on this and messing with it, I don't want to be pumping sludge and junk throughout the engine that I know nothing about. So makes me feel good. I spent a few bucks, not the end of the world. And then before I get into really cleaning things up and making it look pretty, I want to know whether or not I've got a foundation to work with. Now, in this case, this little 2.5 liter four-cylinder has 222,000 miles on the odometer. It's got a tow bar set up. It was flat towed behind a motorhome for part of its life. It has a ignition cutoff switch over here that's been installed, but someone's already cut most of it out. So, you know, I don't know too much about this. So I replaced the key cylinder, the ignition key cylinder. I found that it does not turn the engine over. I know I've got a good battery, good connections in here. I'm not sure if it's a neutral safety switch or something else, but I happen to know that this green wire was run all the way up to the battery. Can't hear it, but that's running the windshield wipers. Something tells me this probably has an ignition switch issue, but we'll get into that later. First, what I want to do is a compression check. Now, in a previous video of mine working on Stanley, my 1962 Chevy C20 service truck, I went through the process of checking compression. Compression is the pressure that's built up inside a cylinder as a piston comes up in the cylinder wall, creating this pressure with fuel in it that then when the spark goes bang, you get an explosion. You do that in a certain sequence, that's what makes an engine run. The rule of thumb I've always been taught, just me, I don't know if this is right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm not a master mechanic, is that what I'm looking for is I want, in the perfect world, these four cylinders all be within 10% of one another for compression. So if I have 100 pounds, 100 pounds, 70 pounds, 100 pounds, I would say I've got a problem in number 3. There's all kinds of variants there. But what we're going to do today is a quick compression check. I'm going to write that down. I'll know what I'm working with. Now, I know that I can't turn the car over using the key. So how on earth will I turn this over to do a compression check, you say? Well, you can go and buy yourself a remote starter switch, and that works well. Or you can kind of cowboy it and bypass all that. Here's a starter. So this is actually a Jeep starter. And rather than getting under there, you've got a positive battery cable, goes right to the positive here. And then on top here, this is an exciter for your solenoid. This is a wire that will be attached to your ignition. So if you get down to your starter and you find the small wire that comes off here and you trace it back to a point, in this case, I've traced it to this dark green wire, which happens to match what the Jeep manual says it should be, but I verified that. What that means is if I apply power to this, if my starter is any good, my starter should go round and round. So I'm going to take this jumper, and what I want to do is put this to my positive battery cable. Now, I've pulled the two relays for this pickup. One's for the fuel pump, one is for accessories. I've also disconnected my coil wire from the distributor, and even though I've pulled out all 4 spark plugs already, I do those things just so I don't have fire and spark anywhere. Now, remember, if you are working with a standard transmission, if you do this and the truck's in gear, it's going somewhere. So I've already verified it's in neutral, and let's see if our starter's any good. Our starter's good. So again, all I did was my starter that's down in there has a small wire. I've traced back up to where it is in the wiring harness here, take a jumper, directly my positive lead on the battery cable, that initiates the starter motor. Now you can also, if you like and you feel adventurous, you can crawl underneath and you can take a screwdriver and you can arc the two of these together. But I thought, why would I do that if I can, from the comfort of standing in my number 10.5s here, just take this little old piece of wire and go like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to check and document the compression in each of the cylinders, starting with number 1. This is a compression gauge, a compression tester. This screws in place of the spark plug. You put it in hand tight, turn the engine over, dial should come up. When it stops going up, I stop, turn the engine over, and then I will record whatever that reading is. So let's get started. And of course, the interesting thing is I'm doing this without glasses on, so I know we could be contacting NORAD if I'm not careful. That went in pretty easy. Hand tight's all I'm looking for. Kind of nice that this gauge has a quick disconnect, just like an air hose. There's a little button on the side here that if there is pressure in here, this is how you release it. Always zero it out, and let's see what number 1 cylinder is like. Okay, I like that a lot. I've got 180 pounds compression in number 1. So I'm going to release that. I like to do this. I'll do it 3 times and log that. And then I can take the average of those. So 180. Actually, it's more like 175. 175 twice. I'm liking that. About 170. I'm going to write down 170. Actually, I'm going to write down all 3 of them. Not that you can read this, and who knows, by the end of the night, maybe I won't be able to either. Cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 measurements. Something I did not mention is that before I do a compression check, particularly on an unknown engine, I want to do it wet. What that means is I take my oil can, and I squirt 4 or 5 squirts of oil into each cylinder, so that as that cylinder is coming up and down inside the cylinder, as the piston's coming up and down inside the cylinder, that's lubricated, and it'll help the ring seal. We'll generally get a more accurate compression reading. So I'm going to go about this. We'll speed it up. I'll get all of these done. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. And I tell you what, using this wire as your remote starter sure does make things easier than walking back and forth, especially if you're running solo out in the shop. All right, so here's what I've got. On this little 2.5 4-cylinder, I've got 175 pounds compression. I'm going to average this one about 155, 175, 160. I'm real happy with the consistency I've got on this. It tells me that if I can get spark, now that I've got ignition, now that I've got compression, if I can get spark and I can get fuel to it, this engine will run. Good news. Definitely have a rat's nest of wiring to clean up in here. We won't be doing that all today, of course, but I don't know. I think that I've got a good foundation, and considering I only paid $700 for this little pickup, it's got a future. Now, keep in mind, how important it is to research a little bit what you're doing before you do it. Don't take some funny looking guy from the Pacific Northwest out here playing in his shop is the only way to do things. When you're going to start bypassing safety features, when you're going to start turning an engine over remotely, you're working in the shop alone, you don't have someone helping, be careful, please. Take the time to buy yourself a Haynes or a Chilton or some manual that's relative to your car. And if you can't do that, maybe go sign up for YouTube University. I've got my master's degree. I know everything. I have access to YouTube. That's going to button it up for this edition of Pardee Shop Shenanigans. Hit the like button, subscribe, tell a friend or 10 about this little project. We've affectionately nicknamed it Mickey. This is Mickey the MJ, and that's because in an earlier episode when I was opening up the air filter, we found a mouse nest, and I had a live one in there. He didn't eat much though. It's okay. Don't forget to check in often, and if you do hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications so that as I start posting more on this little MJ, you can keep up with the progress. Go out and make somebody smile today. You both deserve it.